Today's episode is brought to you in part by Liquid Death. Murder your thirst with 100% mountain water from the Alps, made by nature, not in a lab. Available both still or sparkling, Liquid Death is infinitely recyclable in tall boy cans, just like beer, and never in plastic. Get a case delivered to your house today at unitedwedraink.com/liquiddeath, and you can get a free koozie pack by using the code FREEKOOZIEAF. That's FREEKOOZIEAF at checkout. Just add any Liquid Death koozie pack to your cart, use the code, buy some water, and get these sweet-ass koozies for free with your thirst-murdering water. From Liquid Death at unitedwedrink.com/liquiddeath. Now enjoy the show. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast that 9 out of 10 physicians say, what? To? Welcome to United We Drink, right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and my back is fucking killing me, but the weather's actually getting a little bit better here in Florida, so, whatever. With me, as always, is a guy who immediately rejoined Twitter before the last episode came out, in which I mentioned that he's not on Twitter at the moment, so fuck him. It's Joel Codner.
I should just, like, if you say I'm on it on this podcast, I'll get off it real quick, and then vice versa. So that by the time it airs, everyone is just so confused.
It's
I don't think anyone notices anyway.
Some people do. Some people still reach out to me and go, Joel on a break? Yep. All right, cool. Just wanted to be sure.
What am I, Ross and Rachel?
You're both of them. Not with us is a man who is from a state that Kid Rock calls home. Kevin Abbott's not here. He was having major issues with his computers. Couldn't connect to audio. We couldn't hear him, and he got so frustrated. It was very sad to see the frustration in his face, but he's not here. He's here with us in spirit, a very angry spirit.
To see the frustrated look on a friend's face is always bothersome, and we've also established, well, I guess Twitter people have established that you and I don't care about people. Yes, I'm going to bring that up every fucking episode. I'm
a prominent beer person.
Yes. I actually rather do enjoy when other hosts of this podcast are having technical difficulties, because I've had so many of my own. And it's just a little schadenfreude, however you pronounce it, just a little.
And that just means that now Joel 100% will have the worst audio for this episode. Sometimes you and Kevin go back and forth based off of air conditioning, children, dogs, and all of that. But
well, the little thing on my Audacity app is showing some very clean audio. I'm not getting that fuzzy line when I'm not speaking. So either everything is dialed in at the moment and I'm just having good luck, or it's not recording me at all.
Or there's no other people in your house and your AC died. Those are options.
Everyone's here and the AC is on full blast because I just got home from work.
I see you do have something you're drinking there on this episode. So what do you have?
I've got two of these, like, aluminum Michelob Ultra bottles that you might find at like a Creed
Stadium.
concert or something. Yeah. As a now diabetic with cardiac issues, I lean toward this one a bit. I also can't find fucking High Life in bottles lately at Publix. I don't know what's going on.
My Publix has had real big issues on Miller products in general. I remember one weekend there was no High Life in any format. There was no MGD in any format. And they only had like one Miller Lite option. And they were doing BOGOs on Miller Lite stuff, so that made sense. But the fact that there was like MGD empty, High Life empty, was like, the fuck is going on with the Miller products?
Yeah, I got nervous and thought maybe they got discontinued in South Florida, just like the Miller High Life champagne bottles of last year. Our friend of the show, Ed Roberts, had confirmed we weren't getting them last year, and that was a fucking bummer. But I don't know. I don't see any. They've got cans. I just don't see bottles, and I really don't want the cans. I know it's the same thing. It's just a personal preference.
I know, like, friends of the show, Bitter Units, they like to talk about how the bottles taste better than the cans. And I've honestly mostly bought cans just because they're the spacing in my fridge. Cans have a better place in my fridge than bottles do. So I usually go with them when I'm buying High Life, but it's actually been such a long time since I've had a bottle, I don't really know if there's a difference myself.
They should make the bottles into the shape of the can and just have a giant fucking cap on top.
So mason jars, your favorite glass?
I also think they should make the entire plane out of the black box, but that's...
I'm having a glass of, it's now almost gone, and I'm about ready to go on to the backup beer after all of these technical difficulties. Glass of Das Pils, our Pilsner from my kegerator, but I have a can of Green Bench Fest beer that I'm going to be opening here soon, and can of Liquid Death. Publix is finally stocked back up on it, so all is well in the world.
I was going to have some Glenmorangie because it's been a real long day and I didn't want a beer or several beers as I'm having anyway. But my whole fucking downstairs is getting renovated, with this kitchen shit and all the floors and everything. So I don't know where the fuck any of my glassware is. And, for everything that's gone on in the past few years with glassware and how ridiculous things have gotten, and it just feels like no one cares about presentation and proper glassware and all that. I'm just not drinking a fucking 18-year-old scotch out of a Solo cup.
This from the guy who uses the Welch's grape jelly glass for beers, which I do think is a great glass anyway.
Yeah, it's because I'm insane. And when I was at Tate's Comics the other day, behind the glass case, they had a set of Alvin and the Chipmunks glassware. And I was like, oh, shit, that would be awesome. But I'm sure they're charging a lot more than what you would find on eBay.
I was going to ask how much they were charging for that, but I guess
I didn't even look. I didn't even look. I was too mesmerized by all the comics and cool toys and shit. My kids did not give a single fuck.
That's really crazy. When you said that on Twitter, because your daughter seems very into the whole cosplay thing, and I would have thought that there'd be something there that she would enjoy.
Well, they've been there before, and I don't remember if my son got anything last time. They always ask for, they want, the Pocky fucking, they're like twigs dipped in chocolate. They want, the Japanese snacks and sodas, and I'm just not filling them up with sugar. My son wanted the Fortnite Batman like crossover comic, and they don't have it, or at least I couldn't find it. And my
And you
daughter,
weren't about to ask a human being for help on that.
No, they were getting ready to close soon, and the line was so fucking long. But I figured I would just get that online for him. You know, he's got his preferences when it comes to reading, but with her, she's into anime big time and all that cosplay, like you mentioned, and she got some sort of book last time. She wanted a book this time, but they didn't have it. So, you know, they both wanted stuff that they couldn't find, but it's like, this is the coolest fucking store in South Florida. Like, I'm over 40 years old, and I want everything in there. I want every toy. I want most of the comics. Like, it's Candyland.
Oh yeah, I'm not even into comics anymore at this age, but you put me into Tate's and it's like I can find something. If you're like, you can't leave here without buying something. Oh, I can find something very easily. I should also mention you saying that the kids are into all of those Japanese candies and foods. A store like that opened up on Clematis in West Palm recently.
Oh, Pete's Pop?
I think that's what it's called, yeah.
Yeah, I follow them on Instagram. It looks really interesting. A lot of wild, crazy flavors, all that weird shit. I've been meaning to get up that way. It's hard to make the time.
Oh yeah, and I know that's a hike for you. My coworker at the brewery, he just went there recently, and he was saying that he got some really cool, fun stuff. He's like, it's expensive, but you know, like you get to have these like flavors of Doritos and Kit Kats and Reese's that you can't find anywhere else. And so he said that it was really cool. I've walked by the store a bunch of times because it's like right up there in the 500 block where I like a lot of my favorite like restaurants and bars are.
I mean, if they want to stock some crazy, wild, stupid flavors, they should just stock up on craft beer. Hey-o!
There we go. All right. So the idea for this episode was to finally get to more brewery horror stories that we had been saying, we're going to do this again. We're going to do this again for, I feel like 3 episodes in a row now, and we haven't. And I actually wanted to do, before getting into that, a little bit of a follow-up on last week's episode, the episode that we talked about, the Brown sale. One of the biggest first day downloads we've ever had for an episode. So thank you to everyone who joined in and listened to that. I assume there was probably a lot of people who are local down here and even probably worked for Brown or work for Brown. And hey, welcome. Hopefully you stay on and you want to keep on coming back to the show. But also, yeah, fucking crazy shit. I heard some stuff today that was some new news on the sale, and I was hoping that Kevin could maybe confirm or deny things since he's actually probably gets that information. But I had heard that the Palm Beach County sale of things has completed, but I'm not going to say more on that without really confirmation on it. Maybe we'll get into that on the next episode. But hey, thank you everyone who tuned in and listened to that. That's fucking crazy. I really wasn't expecting something kind of so regional to us down here in Florida or even like South Florida. But I mean, they were a statewide distributor at one point, to get so much love and so many listens.
I'm blown away by that information because the distribution side of, the distribution and sales side of the industry bores the living shit out of me. And like, I still don't know what the fuck IRI is. And I think it's because I purposely don't want to know. I know it's been explained to me before, but there's also a little thing in my brain that takes information I don't care about and just throws it away immediately, whether it's like IRI, someone's name.
So when you say you don't know what IRI is, you don't know what the acronym means, or you don't know what the data means?
Both.
Or both? Because I honestly don't know what the acronym means, and I don't even care to look it up right now with a keyboard and internet in front of me.
It's like the old episodes when you and our former leg of the tripod, Mr. Bill Parmigiano, who I saw today, by the way. Hi, Phil. Bill. Great to see him. When you guys would start talking like sports, and I would just start going to sleep.
Oh, it makes me feel bad that you and I actually went and watched Eagles-Bears games when you, like, moderately cared about the Bears. It was like, I care way more about this game than you do. You're just here to have fun.
No, that was a good time, and I get back into, it's just like Twitter. Like, I get back into it just as things are terrible. Like, you know, I went
terrible for you.
I mean, I went to my first Cubs game in July since childhood, and I mean, they actually kicked ass and won, but I think like the next day or 2 days later, like all the fucking good players got traded away. You know, the Bears have a great quarterback now and a horrible coach, so that's a fucking disaster.
Yeah, and apparently they're going to be moving to the burbs in a few years from the news that I read today.
Yeah, Arlington Racetrack. It's really nice there. I've been there before.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll find a way to fuck it up.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. But, man, a lot of off-topicness in the early part of this episode. Brewery Horror Stories. Joel, we did this one time before as a kind of filler topic for an episode to just talk about dumb shit, scary shit, bullshit, which there's plenty of in this industry, and just to show people like this isn't just all sunshine and rainbows and 99% asshole free or whatever the fucking like thing that's being pushed across this industry right now is. Stuff happens. Scary fucking stuff happens sometimes, and we shouldn't just pretend that it doesn't just because we're small, we're independent, and we hang out with other brewers and blah 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 blah. So because this was all your idea, really, to begin with. Do you want to lead us off here on a new edition of Brewery Horror Stories?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of thought we were going to do not necessarily lightning round where it's quick, but kind of go back and forth. You know, I don't have just one. Okay.
Okay. You have a few? Okay.
Well, just short things. Sure. Honestly, spending the morning while I was working trying to think of really good ones really put my mind in the shitter. I mean, just to think about, all the bad things that have happened. And some are funny too. Some are just inconvenient or whatever. But, we'll let, it'll be interesting to hear any feedback on this episode and, any stories other people have or, maybe relating to some of these things in some way. But, I was just telling this story last week in the tap room. I don't remember exactly why, but it was to a couple of guests in the tap room who had struck up a conversation with me. A regular who I've known for a long time and frequented our first brewery quite a bit back in the day, and one of his friends. So I had brought up, I don't even know what to call this person because you and Kevin and I have all worked with him at that brewery. We constantly trade stories about him, and yet I feel like we don't have any sort of, code words / designate. I guess we can just call him Mr. Wood. But
James Wood. James Wood.
Oh, James Woods. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So this guy. So this guy at our first brewery was relegated to operating the canning line after not doing so great on the brew house. So, I'm doing, I think, most of the brewing. I think Kevin had already gone by then. And Mr. Woods came in on a brew day to set up for canning that day. And our particular canning line had a large depalletizer, which was a real hunk of shit. It was basically like a metal frame and that like corrugated plastic that you would find on like those fucking post office bins that they fill full of mail. You know what I'm talking about?
When you're fired, you get one of those to put all of your stuff into and take it out to your car.
Yeah, it's like that durable plastic that's not exactly cardboard kind of shit. But anyway, so I'm in the office printing out a recipe for the brew day, and he is on the forklift trying to load a pallet of cans into the depalletizer before I need the forklift to hoist a super sack over the grain mill. So he loads the pallet of cans and then, I guess, turns on the machine in a way to kind of get it ready to... Basically how it works is the pallet of cans sits on a platform that is steadily raised as cans come off the top. And they're all in these layers, right? So there's a layer of cans and then a plastic sheet they sit on, and then a layer of cans and another plastic sheet and so on until the end. And the cans all come off the top first. So somehow he engaged this machine to be pulling the platform upward without actually dispensing cans down into the canning line. So I'm in the office printing out this goddamn brew sheet, and all of a sudden you just hear like this bang, and then whoosh, just this, if you've ever seen a movie like Cliffhanger or something with a snow avalanche in it, that was this, but aluminum cans. I mean, what are they, like 8,000 cans on a fucking pallet almost, something like that? And so basically what happened was this thing was just building and building and building tension, and eventually the wire snapped. And, these pallets, they come like tie strapped. So you have to like snip the strap, once you've got it loaded in the depalletizer. Otherwise, like, it's all kind of tied together. So this thing had already been snapped and like ready to go and start moving cans. And it just came down like, I would say Tower 7, but 9/11 was a couple weeks ago. I don't even know if that's the right number building, but, and we'll edit that later. So this whole thing just fucking comes down, and there's just a sea of cans everywhere, and he comes running over. I'm watching this through the window. No, the door was open. Sorry. I've got a clear view of this can avalanche. And I'm also wearing my dust mask because I'm getting ready to mill in, and it's like one of those Bane masks. Like, it's not a little N95 that you would wear to the grocery store. Like, this is the full fucking Bane mask. So my face, like the whole bottom of my face is completely concealed. So I'm watching this and I'm like, God damn it. Because this dude was so mistake-prone.
I don't remember. Was this my office too when you and I shared an office?
It was ours at the time.
Okay. Yeah. It wasn't the next door office.
No, this was the office we shared toward the end. So he comes running over and tries stepping through the pile of cans to shut the machine off. He slips on one of those plastic tier sheets, falls ass first into the mountain of cans, and just disappears like a child in a McDonald's ball pit in the playground. So under my mask, I am like hysterically laughing. Once again, schadenfreude. Not because I think it's great that now the canning day is fucked and he's cost the brewery all this money and everything, but it was also a bit of Schadenfreude because he was just a continual pain in the ass and breaking everything all the time. But fortunately, I was able to mill in and give him the forklift back, to load another pallet of cans. But man, it was just like, and the real fucking bothersome part was like, because he was so mistake prone and breaking everything, it just felt so typical. It just felt like, how else could this go?
That also wasn't the only time that happened.
Right.
Like that the decal fucked. It was a piece of shit decal. Still is a piece of shit decal because it's still there as far as I know. And because one of the instances of that happening, the way I remember it, and I could be slightly wrong because it's been number of years, was when the pallet was coming back down after like being like, all right, end of the run, pallet done, come down.
Yep.
The sensor on the bottom that said, hey, pallet is down, stop, didn't read the pallet was down, so it just kept on turning and then pushed the pallet forward, and there was no gate on the front of this decal. Like our decal at Copper Point, it's a metal structure and it has a gate that you have to double lock in order for it to even function. Like the mechanicals of it will not work unless double locked.
Is it a ska?
Yeah, we have a ska.
Man.
Yeah,
because of all the problems we had with ours, when I would go to CBC every year, I would walk over to that ska booth. It wasn't even a booth; it was like a whole fucking area, and they had they had their decal on display. And I mean, it looked like, it looked like a room you would want to go in during a fucking zombie outbreak. Like that thing is impenetrable.
It's fucking tight, but. I remember, from what I remember, that sensor didn't kick, so the pulley system on it just kept on going. So it started then lifting the pallet from the back and not the front. So pretty much just tilting the pallet forward, and all those cans just flying out.
Yeah,
I know that this happened at least 3 times. From my recollection. I do remember you losing your mind watching him fall because I didn't see that happen. But this was not a thing that was a one-time deal.
No, we had another guy who was working the canning line after Mr. Woods was fired, and he did basically the same thing, and it was like right after he had come to me seeking advice about asking for a raise because he had never really done it before, and he, I was his manager, so he couldn't get the raise from me; it would have to go up the ladder, but he was like, how do I talk to him? What can I say? Like, do you think he'll give it to me? The dude was kind of hurting at the time and needed it. And
this is the guy who didn't want to work on the canning line, but was forced to, right?
That was basically everyone, but yeah.
Yeah.
But he was asking about that, and then fucking broke the decal and a whole pallet of cans, which, I mean, you did the ordering. How much is a pallet of cans?
I don't remember at that point. I don't do the ordering thousands? For us now. I don't know. I don't want to make.
I thought a can was somewhere around, like, at least in the volume we were buying, somewhere between, like, I don't know, 10 and 25 cents each.
Probably around there, depending on bright can to printed can, but I really don't remember. But for some reason, I remember vanilla pricing fucking like it was yesterday. But the canning line caused so many issues. And the big story that I wanted to bring up, and this wasn't even a one-time deal, I feel like. I remember coming into work one day knowing that we had a canning run that needed to be done, and this was like the third guy that was on the canning line who worked on a food truck before then, and he came and he was working in the brewery and he found himself running the canning line. And I came into work one morning and my office, your office as well, was half filled with beer. And the floor all around this bright tank was just beer. Like, what the fuck happened? And I don't even remember what the actual excuse was for why, and you can probably fill this in, but I remember you and I going, let's go to the cameras, because there's a camera right above the door to our office that's pointed towards this bright tank, and him and the brewer who started the brew day, because you came in late on that, you were the second half on the brew day, just stood by the bright tank watching all of this beer flowing all over the floor, just laughing.
This
no
was
one
an accidental
doing anything to try to stop it.
This was an accidental removal of the valve on the side port, right?
That makes about sense now. Yeah,
Because it was pointed at the office, basically.
yeah.
That's got to be it. Wow, I remember this now.
And like I said, that wasn't the first time that my office had been flooded by beer. We had one guy who still works there who took off an absolute out valve on the wrong side and was able to just hold back the pressure of the entire tank with his hand until someone came over with a new valve for him. And kudos to him. But it is just, I can't even remember what the other reason why my office got flooded with beer before. But I know that it happened more than once.
This whole podcast is going to be about these particular people in that particular brewery, isn't it?
And that particular canning line?
Yeah.
Need we bring up the fact that a newbie was brought in to run the canning line and wasn't explained why he needed to turn on CO2 to the canning line and ran 300 cases of beer without CO2 running through it, and therefore we had to dump 300 cases of beer?
Technically, he had to dump 300 cases of beer, can by can, into the drain.
Which was a fucking bullshit, power struggle thing.
Oh, that was a terrible punishment, because they knew they were firing him anyway, but they wanted to make him suffer, which was just totally shitty. I mean, that's a complete leadership and training failure. You know, the whole mentality there was, how the fuck did it go? I don't need you to know
why.
I just need you to know how, and you'll figure out the why later. And for a lot of people, the why just never came. I mean, fortunately for me, I had Kevin training me on the brew house, so I learned the why and what would happen if I pressed this button instead of that button, and all those scenarios. I mean, I had a science, logic, rational-minded person training me, as opposed to someone who was just throwing people up there going, you figure it out. And I mean, I I mean, look, the person you mentioned who blasted beer into the office, when I interviewed him, everyone had seemed to like him because he was, like you said, on one of those food trucks, which was like one of the most popular food trucks we had. People loved that truck. And I mean, they were so busy, there were nights I couldn't get any. So, pizza, not, the slang for get any. But he was a good interview too, and he gave me that whole thing about how I want to do my 10,000 hours or whatever, bullshit people who read like motivational books say to you. I think that works out to like 5 years of experience or something. So he seemed committed and like down to jump into the, brewery and do his best job. And then shit like that happened. I mean, I was told not to interview a guy who had just shown up for his interview for the canning line, a guy who had like, I don't even know how many years of experience packaging for Coca-Cola somewhere. And it's like, how do you not hire that guy right away for your little fucking, 5-head canning line brewery? Apparently the owner, while I was inside waiting, the owner was outside and saw him arrive in his car, and I guess watched him like kind of struggle in the parking lot, which like, I don't think that parking lot got paved until the year we left. Like there were no parking spaces.
Parking lot, yeah.
It was a fucking, it looked like some sort of, outdoor drive-in movie theaters.
It was Mad Max out there at some point.
As opposed to the indoor drive-in movie theaters out there. But, he comes in and he's like, yeah, the guy outside who's coming in for your, 9 o'clock or whatever, he's having a little bit of trouble parking his car. So don't, go get through the interview and then don't hire him. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, thanks for fucking making me waste my time. I mean, it was just, like borderline cruel shit,
Yeah. I mean, most of my time there was borderline cruel shit to me. And it was that I'm new to this industry. I'm taking my lumps, but I was taking, and it takes time in this industry to realize I was taking my lumps from someone who was also new to the fucking industry.
Right. And there are certain people who just, in a group dynamic, sometimes will figure out like who their punching bag is. Now, that kind of shit happened to a lot of people, but you took a heavy brunt of it. I mean, now, if you want to talk horror stories, there's one of you getting abused that is actually funny to me. And it's just the memory of it, It's not, this is not a schadenfreude thing. This is not funny to me because you were getting abused, but it's funny to me because it's so indicative of so much that went on there. And at the same time, like, I wouldn't say you had it coming, but you were pushing buttons a little bit because you do have a tendency to like try and correct people a little bit.
Oh yeah. I no doubt.
See, that's where you should be like, no, I fucking don't. You're trying to correct me. But our sales guy was, I don't even know what he was talking about, but you were kind of nitpicky about certain things he was saying or just correcting like certain words he used or places or whatever it was. Very minor shit. And finally the owner goes, are you fucking with him? Because that's like the third time you've corrected with him and I'm fucking over it. And like it got real weird in the meeting. But I thought it was funny because like it was a very lighthearted meeting. I mean, most of us who worked there were good friends by then. I thought we had a great group dynamic in that sense. And, even if you're nitpicking and correcting or busting balls a little bit, like it's all in good fun. You're never trying to be like the I'm smarter than you person. But you will kind of derail a conversation from time to time.
No, because
trying to make a point.
I want information to be correct, because especially in a group dynamic, something that he says that is incorrect, other people might take as the correct thing, and I just want everything to be clear sometimes. And I could probably do it in a better fashion, but I don't remember that exact instance, but I do know number of times in those meetings, those fucking weekly, sometimes bi-weekly meetings, just being like, nope, that's not right. It's this. And because,
but you also have to understand this. You could tell, like, this is the owner. This is the person who should be the most interested, the most involved, the most like go-getter, leadership, fucking like the whole thing. Like, they should want to be there from start to finish and understand every single in and out and what's going on and where are we at and how things are going and how are you, and know every single fucking facet of what is going on in the place that they have seemingly dedicated their lives and finances and livelihood to. So they couldn't have been any less interested in fucking meetings, and you could clearly tell they felt like they were a waste of time, didn't want to be there. So it's almost understandable that any interruption or delay of the end of this meeting would cause them to just lose their shit.
Which is funny because they were the ones who wanted to have these weekly meetings. Like,
my favorite. Go ahead.
Because I'm fairly certain, like, for a lot of us, we could have worked on some of this stuff on our own without them. Like, you and I could have had a weekly meeting, like, for half an hour and come up with our production stuff. I could have had a meeting with the taproom manager to deal with what they needed to have dealt with in, like, a half hour. And great, awesome. Like, no, like, they didn't even need to be involved into that, but it was just like they just needed to show off their cool new conference table that got left by the company that vacated the building next door that they inherited. Like, hey, we got this conference table. Let's have conferences here.
Well, you make a good point. I mean, there's a certain point, and I have 15 years of corporate America experience, so I've been through all of this kind of shit. But, when you like you make a good point when you could, so like if you've read like Jocko Willink or any of those like leadership type books, he talks about kind of detaching, delegation, and decentralization, meaning, step back, let the fucking people who know what they're doing do what they do, and trust them to, succeed in their mission or do the right thing and all that kind of stuff. But there was so much micromanagement. There was so much, what are you doing, and questioning of everything. Like, it feels like after so much time, there was so little faith and trust, which I think we fucking did everything we could to earn that. I mean, I'm sure we've told the story on this podcast of, my bar shift on a Sunday being put into question because some kids terrorized the place, and we had to go, look at the fucking video to prove I was telling the truth. It's like, what do you like? It's a fucking leadership failure. You should want to know everything about everything that's going on, no matter how much, you feel that inconveniences you. I mean, it's your fucking, this is what you got in the business for. Like, what'd you think? It was going to be just a bunch of fun and just profits raining from the sky? Like, you've got to be involved and care. It shouldn't be, I mean, you would almost hope that the people under you care more than you do, but they never should. You should always be the one who cares the most. And, it's a fucking bummer because, we were there from day one and loved it. I know we loved it, and we were really proud of a lot of the shit we did there, and really felt like, at one point I could have been there forever.
Yeah. And, I don't, I feel like I've said this on the show before, but I know that I've said it to you personally, to other people. Like, say what you will about the company now, those people now, my relationship with that company and those people now. Like, that's one thing. I don't take for granted them giving me the opportunity in this industry. They gave me this, and when things were still very new down here, and they even at points were very wide open about, like, we don't really know what to do with you, and but here are some things, run. And I felt like I ran pretty fast, and I've learned a lot in that time. I've learned a lot in my time after that. And I can be bitter about fucking things that happen there. I can poke fun. I can talk about this. And I have no problem saying that I probably will never step foot in that brewery again unless it's for the one dude who still works there, who I like a lot. And if it's like his last day there, I might go and have a beer with him because he's a nice guy. And
what's the first letter of his first name?
D. Oh, wait, that
Okay.
doesn't really work. There's now two
Sure
now
does.
that I think of it.
No, I either one. I thought you were talking about somebody else.
Oh, okay. But like, that's probably the only time. But you know what? I'm not going to ignore that they gave me an opportunity in this. I grew
course.
from there. I learned from there. I learned what isn't right. I learned what is right, at least in my mind. What's right in my mind is probably different from theirs, but I also do know what is not right, and I learned that there as well. And you know what? You do your thing. You're going on almost 10 years of being in business. Good for you. I think that I'm in a better place right now. You're probably you think you're in a better place right now. Kudos.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have no ill will toward the place. And look, you spend 5 years somewhere, and the majority of your waking life during that time there, it's not all going to be sunshine and flowers and rainbows and unicorns and fucking all that shit. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be crazy stuff. And I mean, they're all learning experiences, every single one of them.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, I mean, I don't know if you have another one lined up, but I did want to ask, because I feel like maybe it's just a selective memory or I'm being forgetful, but I feel like I never heard you say anything bad about, not necessarily bad about the place, but I don't recall many horror stories of your time brewing in Philly.
Honestly, I don't have a whole lot of horror stories there. We were a small place, and they still are a small place. We have a one barrel brew house, 3 barrel tanks for doing double batches into and just having enough headspace. Like, I bartended, and honestly, with the exception of probably you, Nick, my boss there, was probably the most fun person to work with. And that's not even a shot at my current boss. I love Matt a lot. But like, Nick was a really great person to work for. He's a smart dude. He's a little old school, and like, there were things about new trends that he disliked, and maybe without knowing everything involved in it. I even didn't know everything, involved in it at those times. But I love that we made good style, like traditional styles, very well there. We had a great group of regulars and just people always coming into our small little brewery. Like, I sometimes compared us at Moss Mill to Copper Point, because we had another brewery right around the corner from us who was very much like our previous brewery. And it seemed like there was some of that stuff going on there between the two breweries. It was like, there's the older one who's been there, and then the new guys come into town who have a person with experience behind them who has been working in the industry and is making these styles with quality. And it's like, oh, there's some animosity from the other ownership towards the new ownership because you're... And I feel like this brewery was even closer to us than the situation down here. But it was just like, Nick was a fun dude to work with. He could sometimes be like overwhelmed because he was trying to run the business and sometimes give input on brewery stuff. But he really did there was me and Courtney, who was our like head brewer. We were the only two people in the brewery. He just was like, you guys make this work. You tell me what I need to buy you to make this work, and I'll do that if I can. Like, but I want you guys to run this show. Like, if you have questions, you really are concerned about something, come to me. Other than that, I trust you. And it was really one of the best situations. I realized, like, after I moved back here, like, I probably would have been laid off if I would have stayed there, because even before the pandemic, the brewery staff there got laid off because of stuff going on. I don't know. I didn't dig deep, but like, I did really enjoy my time there. So not on the spot, I might be able to find something, but I can't right now.
That's good. That's really good to hear. That's encouraging. I mean, to hear what you said about what he said to you guys, that's incredibly rare. I mean,
It is, yeah.
I was told that initially when I started at the brew pub after leaving our first place. And that lasted a little while. And then mismanagement, 6 managers in 2 years, financial constraints because of the kitchen and mismanagement of finances and all that stuff. Eventually, I was told don't brew without written permission, which is fucking insane at a brewery. But, I mean, Christ, I could do a whole series of episodes on that place and horror stories.
Funny story. Sorry to interrupt. I was at a local place this past weekend. I took my pup over to Steam Horse to have some beers on the patio, let my wife have a little bit of time to just relax by herself, and got into talking with a couple on the patio, older couple, and they were asking about me, and when I said that I used to work at that brew pub, they were like, "What happened there?" They were like, "The beers were fantastic. We really enjoyed the food. We really enjoyed the space." Like, I was a little bit brash. I'd had 3 beers at this point, and they were like, "The lawyer, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah." It made me feel good that I'm like, you know what? I was only there for 2 months. You were there for years. And like the fact that you did something to people, like you converted people, or you gave people an awesome place to come and have beer and food. Like, I know that you're just mainly focused on the beer, but like that people still are like, the beer there was so good. What the fuck happened? And that what the fuck had nothing to do with your beer and what you were doing there. It was funny to me to just, I feel like that's always going to come up when I'm talking with people who live in West Palm and like beer. If I mention that place, there's always going to be a person who goes, "What the fuck happened there?"
It's it's always uplifting and simultaneously depressing to hear those stories because I get them often. You honestly could not have, based on the timing here, could not have provided a better segue for what was going to be my final horror story, which was just sort of a general sense of that place in the 3 years there because, so I'll shout out friend of the show. God, I hate saying friend of the show. Fucking friend. Alexandria Gray. She had been on previous episode.
Yeah, former guest of the show.
Yeah, awesome brewer, awesome person to follow on Instagram. She's a little hop flower. She apparently resigned from her role at her brewery. Told me a little bit about it. I'm not at liberty to say anything, and I don't want to put any business out there. It's not my business, but she was kind enough to share a little bit of information with me. But posted something today that had basically indicated that on to bigger and better things, and make sure you take care of your mental health and put yourself first. And that is something I did not fucking do at the place you're referring to. For all the fun I had there, for all of the success, for the amazing 2 months I spent with you and the cool shit we brewed together, for the really, that was the best paycheck I ever had in my life and helped, me get my first home with my family. All the amazing awards we won that I couldn't believe, all the positive feedback about the beers and the food, and it was fucking happening for a minute. But I spent those 3 years almost in constant terror and fear because I was afraid of losing that job and losing that paycheck and losing that creative freedom. I mean, it was like the optimal job for me, which I knew was rare, but at the same time I was, serving at the behest of this narcissistic maniac who would seek your advice and then say, excellent points, thank you, I appreciate that feedback, and then throw it right in the fucking trash and completely ignore it. Someone who claimed to say, I don't know anything about this business and I've never worked in this business before, but what I'm going to do is hire the right people and defer to them and their expertise. And then, at the first sign of trouble, completely fucking turns that on its head and panics and makes stupid decisions and all of that. There's an amazing quote by Bourdain in Kitchen Confidential. Fuck, I swear I posted this on Instagram. It might be in my...
You did post something about a quote of his recently.
It's basically like an entire page of him going off on well-to-do people who figure I'll jump into the restaurant business because I like food or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And it was basically the same situation there. You have a very financially successful person who thinks, oh, I'll open a brewery. How hard could it be? Breweries are hot right now. I'll have no problem turning a profit. Everything will be fucking golden. And of course it was anything but. But, for all that may have gone on the surface, I mean, I was in a living hell. I mean, it got to the point toward the end where I was there 7 days a week. I never saw my family. It fucking wasn't worth it at all.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you are not dealing with that anymore. All right. So I do want to get to one user submitted. I hate to end that so abruptly, but we're at an hour. Want to get to this user submitted brewery horror story, if you will. So this, and they actually said that I'm allowed to use their name. This is because they don't technically work in the industry. This is friend of the show, Ben. He's actually a creative person, does video, photography, stuff, not just for the brewery industry, but for a lot of different industries. But anyway, this is what he says. So a few years back, I got injected into a conversation with an owner of a brewery in North Carolina. Not a huge brewery, but one with decent market share in the state and one where you can buy their product and package at stores. Anyways, he gets into what he envisions about video content and explains that we should do a half-hour documentary on him and his management team and what they've done to differentiate themselves as a brand. I explained that we have those capabilities, but it's outside the scope of what we usually do, and we require probably a week's worth of filming, if not more. He says that's fine, but then suggests that his story is so good, in quotations, that we should do it for free. I explained that's not really the way it works, and if he wants to do a half-hour documentary feature on themselves and their brand, then we'll need to scope it accurately for a price point. So I give him a more than reasonable quote based on what he was asking for, and he screams, "Fuck you," into the phone and hangs up on me. So I call him back. He picks up and tells me I'm an awful person that doesn't understand their art and what they're doing, and then threatens to go online and damage me and my company's reputation online. I kept my cool and I tell him there's been a huge misunderstanding and that I was just trying to quote him on half of what an ad agency probably would for the same thing. He then goes online, posts a blog about me personally, and says not to work with me. We had to send a cease and desist. Anyway, everyone else I've worked with has been incredible in this industry. I've worked with people like Dale from Oscar Blues and Ken from Sierra Nevada, who've obviously been such big influences in the craft beer industry. This guy, this guy was literally the biggest blowhard I've ever been exposed to in all my years of working.
Wow. Ben, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Wow. I mean, almost sounded like the person we were just talking about, the owner of the brew pub, because
A little bit.
it sounded very similar. I mean, just wanting everything to be about him and his, brand of something. I don't even want to mention it that was sold there. The arrogance and narcissism. And I mean, when I first came on there, he was like, yeah, we'll do a podcast together every week. And it's like, yeah, because I got time for that shit. Like, in addition to the podcast I already do, and just being the only person in this fucking brewery on the beer side. But yeah, that's insane. And we hear those stories all the time.
Yeah.
From, beer people, content creators. Everyone thinks, all these fucking people who want their services but don't want to pay for them. I mean, it's sad to say it's par for the course.
Oh yeah, can I pay you in beer? Does beer pay my fucking mortgage? Does beer pay for my electric bill?
Right.
No, it fucking sucks.
Yeah, one of these days I'm going to get my FPL bill and that little return envelope with the plastic window. I'm just going to pour one of my beers into it that I brewed. And then I probably won't even need to lick the envelope. It's going to be so wet. And then I'll just put it in my mailbox and see if my lights are on the following month.
It'll be quite the social experiment. Thank you, Ben, for submitting that horror story, because that definitely is one. If you have a brewery horror story that you want us to talk about, You can send it over to info@unitedwedrink.com. We can make you anonymous. We can say your name, whatever. You can block out whatever you want in the story. But if it's something that you think is worthwhile talking about, just to show there's some darker sides or even hilarious sides in that darkness, please send them over to us, because we are masochists over here.
Listen, the whole fuck you in that story reminded me of, can I do like just a quick one?
Sure.
So at the brewery, this is probably a couple years in, things are as chaotic as ever. And we have a guy now running. The kitchen was always the most chaotic part of the whole place. The front of the house, the kitchen, total disaster. And we had a guy who we'll call Rico, an Italian guy now running the kitchen. He was from Sardinia, like real legit Italian guy, like not Chris Pratt voicing Mario in the new animated movie that everyone's so upset about, like an actual Italian. The thick accent, the whole deal. He would leave in the middle of his shift to go buy scratch off lotto tickets. He would tell the front of the house, like, "Hey, give me money. I go buy scratch off and we all win together." And then people would chip in so he could buy like the really expensive scratch off lotto tickets and then never see their money again, or even find out if they had a winning ticket or anything. Anyway, so we had a dishwasher guy, an older African-American gentleman named Frank. That's his actual name. Trust me, he's not listening. And he was hilarious. Like, dishwasher, again, disastrous position there. But it's like the Chris Rock joke. Like no one dislikes you more than older black guys. Like, oh, Willie, he's so nice. Willie hates your guts. Like, that was the joke. And that was Frank. So Rico, technically being Frank's manager on that side of the business, needs his help. And he calls, I'm not doing it justice, but, it's one of those you had to be there and hear it for yourself kind of things. But Rico basically goes to Frank and says, "Hey, Frank, I need your help over here." And I'm so sorry for that accent. And Frank just looks up from washing the dishes and goes, "Fuck you." And just kept right back, just kept on washing dishes. Didn't give a shit. It was great.
I like your little slip in there.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, like he's listening too. All right. So I think that wraps up a nice round of brewery horror stories. We're getting into spooky season anyway, so makes about sense. Last calls. I think let's get into this. Point in time where we pretty much last called the whole past 40 minutes of this show. Do you have a last call?
I could.
Okay. This is the point where we usually give each other an unspecific amount of time to just voice our opinions on something positive, negative, whatever, uninterrupted, unresponded to. I'm just going to say this right now. Fucking USPS, the fact that I tried to send a package back, just put it in my mailbox with the return stuff already on it, put a nice little note on it, said, "Outgoing package, please." And the mail guy just fucking picked it up, put my mail underneath it, and just left it there. USPS will only take an outgoing package or mail from you if you fill out a pickup form on their website first. That's all you got to do. Just fill out a form online for them to take that. Not, even though they come about it on their pickup, they won't do it unless you fill out a fucking form. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, I mean, this guy's definitely not getting a tip from me for Christmas. But holy fuck, I remember back in the days, our mail guy, when I was growing up in PA, like just like that guy was out there like Monday through Friday, no matter what, walking. Like, yeah, he wasn't fucking driving his little truck to all the fucking mailboxes, but it's just fucking hilarious that they won't take outgoing mail from your mailbox, even if you leave a note saying so, unless you fill out a form on their website. I'm sure someone can probably come back at me and be like, well, this is the reason why, and Amazon makes them work longer hours. Fuck off. This is my last call. USPS, just grab the fucking mail. You're there. Go ahead, Joel.
I know I'm not supposed to respond, but did you turn the little red flag upright?
I don't have a red flag.
Sorry.
It's a mailbox attached to the house.
And real quick to respond responding to last calls. I want us obviously Kevin's not in this episode, but I want us on the next episode to spend a few minutes reacting to his last call in the previous episode about being told that one of the beers that he thinks is like the best we ever made, someone told him that they thought it was a shelfie, or basically a shelf turd, based on the look of the can. I feel like we, as a beer/beverage podcast, like, we can't put that kind of shit in last call because we need to respond to it. And I have so many thoughts on the story he told. So I'd love to get into that with him on the next one. I haven't even talked to him about it personally because I want to save it for the episode. And I see him 5 days a week. Anyway, so for my last call, I posted this on Twitter today, and I'm just going to reiterate it here. It's Halloween, yes, or not Halloween now, but Halloween season. I love candy corn, and fuck you. I don't know where all this candy corn hate comes from. Like, have you had circus peanuts? How about listen, I get into this every year on social media with people. Tootsie Rolls are dog shit. Tootsie Rolls are like little turds wrapped in paper. They're too hard to chew. They taste like somebody fucked up chocolate, and they're like, oh, well, it's like when someone fucks up a beer, and they're like, oh, we'll send it out anyway. No one will know the difference. like someone tried making chocolate and just fucked it up royally, but there are like enough people enjoying it and then don't know the difference. So they're like, yeah, keep it coming. Like, Tootsie Rolls are the worst. And as a parent, I throw away anything that's like wrapped in paper like that anyway. All those candies where it would be so easy to just untwist it and take off the wrapper and stick it in your crotch and then put it back in the paper, like, my kids don't eat those. It's got to be factory sealed, like the whole thing. I'm in there with a microscope looking for needle marks and shit. And by the way, all you fucking, every year, you fucking reporters and news outlets that post these bullshit stories about edibles in Halloween candy, no one's giving away their fucking edibles ever unless you're giving them to friends to enjoy edibles with you, like I did with Mike and Kevin at Universal Studios one year. My edibles are in a veritable Fort Knox in my house. Like, no one's getting to them. I'm certainly not giving them away.
That was, I think, one of your better ones. I like that. Joel, anything to plug?
God, should I say I'm on Twitter or no? I don't know how I'm gonna be on the by the time this drops.
I don't know.
All right, so for the moment, as of this recording, I am Joel Brews
September
on Twitter.
29th, 2021. Huh? September 29th, 2021. That is when we're recording.
As of the moment, I am still on Twitter as Joel Brews. I am still Florida DUH Brewer on Instagram, though I mostly just post fucking stories that don't last more than a day. Come see us at Barrel of Monks. I know Kevin would want to have some sort of shameless plug in this episode. I'm sure if he were on this episode, he would be drinking an Infinite Enigma, which is our new 10% triple IPA, dry hopped with Citra, Mosaic, and Equinaut, which really kicks ass and will completely put you on your ass because it does not drink like 10%. Mike, I will bring you... Are you going to be at the pretzel thing?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll let Mike plug that if he wants to, but there's a little pretzel thing going on at Copper Point this weekend, which will have already passed by the time this airs. But
thanks for
I'm going to bring Mike's Barrel of Monks beer.
Yeah, I was initially going to plug that, but then I was like, it's going to be over by the time that this episode comes out. But you figured it out during your little rant.
But then people can go, fuck, I missed it. Like, I should pay attention to them more.
But you should also pay attention to us at Copper Point because we did release a couple weeks ago our coffee lager in cans using new Guatemalan Antigua coffee from our friends at Floridian Coffee Roasters in West Palm Beach. I think that it fucking tastes amazing. We got 4 packs of 12-ounce cans available for that, and we got draft on at the house. We'll, by this time, have our Goterator Double Bock out for draft and 4-pack cans as well. It's probably my favorite label that I've ever designed over there.
Can't wait.
Absolutely did not believe that my boss would actually like it, and he fucking loved it and was just like, not even like, change this up, change that. It was like, let's go with it. I'm like, fuck yeah. Very metal looking, and I love it. The beer also is one of those scary beers. It's 8%, and it does not taste a bit like that. Just big malty flavors, raisin, molasses. I just love it. It's such a great drinking beer. So yeah, you can follow us at Copper Point Brewing, and we have those beers, and hopefully we'll have some other fun stuff going on soon. You can follow me at Mike Loves Beer on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow the show on Twitter at United We Drink, on Instagram at United We Drink Pod. We're also on Facebook. We're on all of the major podcast services: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, all of those places. You can support the show financially through visiting any of our sponsors. UnitedWeDrink.com/sponsors. We have some fucking awesome stuff like Death Wish Coffee, Liquid Death, Sparkling Water, American Homebrewers Association, and much more. Check that out. Also, we have our store, UnitedWeDrink.com/store, for shirts, stickers, buttons, masks, totes, all of that fun stuff. Other than that, we will be back in a couple weeks with a brand new episode. Hopefully, Kevin will have figured out what the fuck is wrong with his computers by that time. In the meantime, thank you everyone once again for listening to us. For Kevin and Joel, hey, cheers.
Cheers.